Okay, so far we have created the payroll journal. We've got two other journals to deal with yet. We're going to take them kind of out of order from what they are in the book, because I want to follow a chronological sequence. And so if you'll turn to the general journal that's found on page 135, you'll see the most traditionally accurate journal you'll find. The general journal, even oftentimes on the screen in your computer, will look just like this. It will have a location to place a description of what the entry is. And the description can be anything you want it to be. I've seen people write novels in the general journal, okay? And you make up the words. It just needs to be legible and something that someone can, I mean, if you want job security, use a foreign language. I guess you could do that. But normally it's something that we can track and understand. To the right of that, it has a column for the account number for the accounts that we're going to use. And to the right of that, the account names. Then it has a column for debits and a column for credits. If we want to debit the account, we're going to put the amount in the debit column, and also, if we want to credit, we're going to put it in the credit column. Now, the first entry is to set up the employer's portion of Social Security and Medicare taxes. How much, first of all, is the employer's portion? So we need to go back to the payroll journal and look at how much we withheld in Social Security tax. $784.92, right? Now, the payroll journal, we credited the payable account for $784.92, right? But we actually owe twice that amount, don't we? So we need to enter another $784.92 into Social Security payable. Are we going to debit or credit Social Security payable? Credit it. So in the general journal, in the credit column, besides Social Security payable, put $784.92. Now we also need to match the Medicare, right? So how much are we going to show as a payable to Medicare to match it? $183.57. So in the general journal, write as a credit $183.57. Okay? Medicare. What's that? In Medicare payable. So to the right of Medicare payable, write $183.57. Now, as always, even in the general journal, every credit must have a balancing side too, right? What's the debit go to for these payable accounts? Payroll tax expense. Do you remember us talking about T accounts? The credit goes to payable, the debit goes to payroll tax expense. So in your general journal, in the debit column, beside payroll tax expense, write the $784.92 on the first line, and on that third line where it says payroll tax expense, put a debit for $183.57. Okay? Does that balance? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Okay? Now, go ahead and post those 4 lines into the general ledger so that you can see what's happening. So place the debit, the 2 debits to payroll tax expense, write them in to payroll tax expense, which is in the expense section of the general ledger, and then apply the credit to Social Security payable and the credit to Medicare payable in the 2 liability accounts. Now, do you see what happened to your Social Security payable? What's the balance now in Social Security payable? You don't have to add it up. Just give me an approximate. Yeah, $1,500, $1,600, somewhere in there, right? And isn't that what we owe? Had we not made this entry, it would have been understating our liabilities, wouldn't it? Okay? So we wanted to show what we truly owed, and it was a payroll tax expense item. Okay? Now, entry B is to set up the employer's portion of the group health insurance. Our premiums per each employee are actually $160 apiece. We've only withheld $80 from their paycheck. So we need to match what we withheld and make the entry in the general journal. So go ahead and make that entry applying to the account you think you're going to debit. Put the amount of that matching. How much are we going to match, first of all? $320, right? So we're going to apply the $320 as a debit to the account that you think you're going to debit and a credit to the account you're going to credit. You got a 50-50 chance of being right here, okay? Always put it in the general journal first. Very good. So an employee benefits expense, we're going to debit it $320 and we're going to credit group insurance payable of $320. Remember, if it's an expense, what is it? Almost always, with very rare exception, debit, okay? So if you see expense, you can be pretty assured that it's going to be a debit. Go ahead now and post that into the general ledger by debiting employee benefit expense, $320, and crediting group health insurance payable, $320.
Post the general journal entries A and B to the T accounts on pages 1.4 and 1.5. Then restart the program.